Welcome back to DIY Career Success. We are continuing to look at skilled labor markets and understanding these labor markets. So this is a bit of a bonus one, which I'm adding here in the last quarter of 2022. I do have a podcast. You can find me on Spotify, and it's called Dr. Trevor Gerhardt. In the last quarter of 2022, I will be talking to some Gen Zs in terms of their career aspirations and how they are approaching labor market. So do continue to look at the podcasts as a support to this Udemy course. And of course, if you're not aware of the Udemy course, because this will also be put on YouTube, do tune in. This is a downloadable video. It's free. So do check out the Udemy course that accompanies this particular presentation on skill development and employability. So what I'm going to do here is just give you some examples of how we know, so people like myself, how do we know what to address in terms of skills? Do we make this up? Where does it come from? And I'm going to be looking at the UK as a case study to give you an indication of labour markets. So here's my first example. This is from the UK government. This was produced in May 2016. And already back then, bearing in mind that this was kind of around the time of Brexit, which would have had an impact on labour markets, leaving the European Union and the trade of labour. But also, of course, this is pre the COVID-19 pandemic. And already pre all of this, the UK identified that there is a skill shortage. They do admit that this is specific to certain sectors. So again, it's understanding your sector and where you're wanting to go in terms of your careers, and also particular what we call soft skills or employability skills, such as problem solving. So again, it's worth going into the Udemy course and doing the course in terms of these soft skills, understanding what they are and how you can develop them. And again, there's a number of other stats there in terms of labor, where you end up. 1 in 3 employees are overqualified. This again is an indication of signaling theory, where labor markets are topsy-turvy, and those who are overqualified, who lose their jobs or need another job, are willing to downgrade in order to secure employment, but that pushes everybody else out in terms of competition. So do go and have a look at those elements within the Udemy course again. Here's another report. This is by Robert Walters, .co.uk, so a university report, and they are looking at, again, the skill shortage in 2018. Interestingly, they look at management, and we notice that mid-management or middle management is a huge shortage. Now, we'll come back to this a little bit later in terms of COVID and the impact that that is having on management, and I'll show you that as well in a few minutes. Also, they've zoned in on the particular industries or sectors that actually do still require a specific qualification. Isn't that interesting? So again, think about the kind of degrees you set yourself to do and how you could potentially showcase these on LinkedIn profiles, CVs, job applications. But again, very interesting. And there you've got the chapter headings and the link to access those reports. This is another educational research report. This is done by Edge, and they've particularly looked in on the hospitality industry, and they've actually looked at their own Edge Hotel School. Now, this again was done in 2019, so pre-COVID, and we know that the hospitality industry was hit really hard with the restrictions during COVID-19. Again, you'll notice their skill shortages. They're indicating the hotel and restaurant sector, and then information and communication, and then education right down at the bottom in terms of teachers and I guess university lecturers and so on. A more stable market, but nonetheless an indication of skill shortages. In comparison, again, a little bit later in the year, November 2019, this is a report done by McKinsey and Company. And interesting, they have placed hospitality right down at the bottom in terms of their data and research. But they have indicated the potential impact of automation, so digital, artificial intelligence, these kinds of things. You'll notice at the top of theirs, again, information and communication. So again, a huge demand for these kinds of skills within that sector, and of course, a very growing sector. And in essence, not enough people to match the growth of these particular sectors. Again, another really good report to look into, particularly in terms of the future of work. Now, COVID-19, what impact has this had on labor markets? Again, thinking about signal theory. When the markets go topsy-turvy, the signaling cues or the market cues, the labor cues, do not act normally. Rather than having two separate cues for skilled and non-skilled, they often merge, and the skilled labor markets push those that are non-skilled out. Now, COVID-19 has created that, and at the moment of this recording, we are now in a inflation crisis across the world with costs of energy and etc. going through the roof. Now, all of this is creating topsy-turvy labor markets. Now, added to that, we've had what's called the Great Resignation. Predominantly in the US, there has been thousands of people who have left work. A fifth of workers plan to quit in 2022, and they have done so. It's slowing down, but it is still happening. People taking early retirement, etc. This has an impact on management, potentially middle management. In the UK, we have what's called the grey resignation. So there's a huge amount of people in the over 50s who have walked away from their work. Again, this is not necessarily the skilled labour markets, but it does include that as well. And again, would include those middle management positions. And again, these have implications in terms of those shortages and the kinds of skill shortages that we may find. So again, as I said, very interesting. This is how we come up with our skills training and what we know is needed and how we design curriculum in universities. And this gives you an example of the kind of research that you can do if you're taking your career progression very seriously as well.